Welcome back Auto Reviews. Today we bring you one of the most talked about developments in global military balance, a move that has sent shockwaves through Eastern Europe and caused deep concern in Moscow. Russia is in panic as the United States has decided to deploy thousands of M1 Abrams main battle tanks and Bradley infantry fighting vehicles directly to the Ukrainian battlefield. This deployment marks not just a transfer of equipment, but a massive shift in the performance capabilities, battlefield dynamics, and overall balance of power in the ongoing war. When we talk about the M1 Abrams, we are talking about one of the most iconic and powerful main battle tanks ever built. For decades, it has symbolized American armored superiority, tested in conflicts from the deserts of the Middle East to training exercises across NATO territory. It combines speed, firepower, and survivability in a way that very few tanks can match. And now, as thousands of these tanks begin rolling into Ukraine, the performance review of this machine under European combat conditions will be closely observed not only by the United States and its allies but also by Russia, China, and every other major military power. The M1 Abrams is powered by a Honeywell gas turbine engine that produces 1,500 horsepower, giving it a top speed of around 45 miles per hour despite weighing nearly 70 tons. This speed and mobility, especially when combined with the tank's advanced suspension system, make it an incredibly versatile vehicle in both offensive and defensive operations. On the Ukrainian battlefield, where mobility and quick maneuvering across open terrain can mean the difference between survival and destruction, this mobility factor alone is game-changing. Russian tanks like the T-72 and even the more modern T-90 struggle to match this combination of speed and weight. Then comes the firepower. The M1 Abrams is equipped with a 120mm smoothbore cannon capable of firing a variety of advanced ammunition, including depleted uranium armor-piercing rounds. These rounds have been proven to penetrate even the most modern reactive armor systems. Alongside the main gun, the Abrams carries multiple secondary weapons, including 8.50 caliber machine gun and two 7.62mm machine guns for close-range defense. The performance of these weapons in previous wars, especially in Iraq during Operation Desert Storm and the 2003 invasion, showed how Abrams tanks could destroy enemy armor at ranges far beyond what Iraqi and Soviet-designed tanks were capable of. Now, facing Russian formations in Ukraine, this firepower gives Ukraine the ability to counter heavy armored assaults with confidence. Protection is another area where the Abrams excels. Its Chobham composite armor, often upgraded with depleted uranium mesh, is one of the toughest defensive systems in the world. In past conflicts, Abrams tanks have absorbed direct hits from rocket-propelled grenades, anti-tank guided missiles, and even other tank shells, often with crews surviving. On the Ukrainian front, where Russian artillery, drones, and anti-tank missiles are everywhere, this protection ensures survivability, which directly boosts morale for both Ukrainian crews and their allies. Russia is watching nervously because many of their older anti-tank systems may suddenly become ineffective against Abrams armor, forcing them to adapt at huge cost. But the United States did not stop with the Abrams. Alongside it comes the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. At first glance, the Bradley may look like a smaller armored vehicle, but in terms of battlefield performance, it's a vital piece of the puzzle. The Bradley combines mobility, firepower, and troop transport in one package. It carries a 25mm chain gun, a coaxial machine gun, and most importantly, it can launch TOW anti-tank missiles. This means the Bradley can effectively engage not only infantry and light vehicles but also go toe-to-toe with tanks. On top of that, it carries up to 6 or 7 infantry soldiers into combat, protected by armor that shields them from small arms fire and artillery shrapnel. In real battlefield conditions, Abrams tanks and Bradleys often work side by side. The Abrams takes on the heavy armored threats, smashing through defensive lines, while the Bradleys provide supporting fire, suppress infantry positions, and deliver troops exactly where they need to be. This combination has been tested for decades in the U.S. Army, and now it will be put to the ultimate test against Russia's best forces. The performance review of this pairing is not just about the machines themselves, but about the tactics, training, and coordination that come with them. The scale of this deployment is what really has Russia panicked. We're not talking about a token delivery of a few dozen tanks, but thousands. Imagine the sight of endless convoys of Abrams and Bradleys moving across Eastern Europe, unloaded from ships, transported on massive trains, and finally rolling into Ukraine. This isn't just a logistical feat, it's a statement of American industrial and military might. The sheer numbers overwhelm Russia's ability to respond proportionally. Russia's tank fleet has already suffered devastating losses in Ukraine, with thousands of T-72s destroyed or captured. Even the newer T-90 MiZ, which Russia had advertised as their super tanks, have been knocked out by Western-supplied Javelins and NLAWs. Now, facing Abrams and Bradleys in large numbers, the performance gap becomes impossible to ignore. From a cost and pricing perspective, the Abrams is not a cheap machine. Each unit can cost upwards of $8 million, depending on the variant and upgrades. The Bradley, too, runs into millions per vehicle. But the United States has the defense budget and production capacity to support this. By sending thousands, Washington is signaling that it views the investment as worthwhile, not just for Ukraine's survival, but for the long-term weakening of Russia's military capabilities. Compare this to Russia, which is struggling to replace its tank losses and has resorted to pulling decades-old T-62s and even T-55s out of storage. The performance review, therefore, is not just technical but economic. The US can sustain and replace these modern vehicles, while Russia cannot match that pace without crippling its economy further. Performance in the field will also depend on training. Ukrainian crews are already undergoing intensive training programs with US and NATO instructors to master the Abrams and Bradleys. The learning curve is steep, but once crews adapt, the results can be dramatic. In Iraq, US tank crews destroyed enemy armor with a kill ratio of nearly 30-1. If Ukrainian crews can achieve even a fraction of that effectiveness, Russian armored units will find themselves at a catastrophic disadvantage. The panic in Moscow comes not only from the physical machines but from the realization that once Ukrainians master them, the effectiveness of Russian tank assaults could collapse entirely. Another performance factor is technology integration. Abrams tanks deployed to Ukraine are equipped with advanced thermal imaging, fire control systems, and digital communication tools. This means that Abrams crews can spot Russian tanks at night or through smoke long before the enemy can see them. In modern warfare, the side that sees first usually wins. This technological edge will completely change the battlefield dynamics, especially in areas where Russian forces have relied on surprise or concealment. The Bradleys, too, with their advanced optics and missile systems, make ambushes and infantry assaults far riskier for Russian forces. From Russia's perspective, this deployment represents a nightmare scenario. Their propaganda has long emphasized that Western weapons would not change the outcome of the war. But reality is proving otherwise. Every Western delivery, from HIMARS to Leopard 2 tanks, has shifted the balance. The arrival of thousands of Abrams and Bradleys is more than just another step, it's a leap. The Russian military-industrial complex cannot match the pace, and the morale of Russian troops, already strained by long months of war, will be tested like never before. Soldiers who have faced older Soviet-style tanks may now have to confront Abrams, vehicles they have only heard about in stories of American dominance in Iraq and Kuwait. The review of this move also touches on global impact. Countries across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East are watching closely. The Abrams and Bradley have long been export products, sold to allies worldwide. Their performance in Ukraine will serve as a real-world demonstration for potential buyers, showcasing not only their raw power but also their effectiveness against a major military power like Russia. If these vehicles perform as expected, demand from US allies could skyrocket, while Russian arms exports, already damaged by battlefield failures, may plummet further. On the battlefield itself, the impact will not be immediate. Integrating thousands of vehicles takes time, training, logistics, and coordination. But over the coming months, as Abrams units roll into combat zones and Bradleys deliver Ukrainian infantry to frontline positions, we will see a gradual but undeniable shift. Defensive lines that once held against lighter vehicles may collapse under coordinated assaults. Russian armored counterattacks may be blunted by superior firepower and protection. And as these victories accumulate, the psychological effect on both Ukrainian and Russian troops will be massive. In conclusion, the United States' deployment of thousands of M1 Abrams tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles to Ukraine represents one of the most significant upgrades in battlefield capabilities since the war began. From performance, firepower, and protection to cost, logistics, and global impact, the review is overwhelmingly clear: this move is a game changer. Russia is in panic because it knows that no matter how much propaganda it produces, no matter how many reserves it calls up, it cannot match the combination of American technology, industrial power, and Ukrainian determination. The Abrams and Bradleys are more than machines, they are symbols of a new phase in this conflict, one where Ukraine's chances of victory increase dramatically, and Russia's ability to sustain its aggression faces limits it may not be able to overcome. This is Auto Reviews, bringing you a deep dive into the performance, impact, and future implications of this historic deployment. Stay tuned, because the story of the Abrams and Bradleys in Ukraine is only just beginning.